Hi everybody, my name is Jared and I am a Master Mason in the state of Mississippi in the United States of America. And today's viewer's question is it a common thing for lodges to require a Master Mason to have known a candidate for at least a year prior to his petition? Well, as I've said many times before, I have to give the disclaimer that the only jurisdiction I am familiar with is the state of Mississippi here in the United States. So to speak specifically to that, I'm one of those Masons that always carries a petition around in his billfold, because you never know when somebody's going to ask you how they can become a Mason. And there it is, a petition. And it specifically says right here, "We recommend and vouch for the petitioner upon our personal knowledge of him." So it doesn't specify that there has to be a certain year's worth of knowledge, whether it's a year or his whole life or the last 5 days or what it is, but personal knowledge of him. Now this is before the investigation committee ever takes place. This is just so that the petition can be submitted to the lodge. And to kind of clarify your question a little bit more, that requires 2 signatures from a Master Mason, not just one. So the actual literal meaning here, the intent here, is that 2 Master Masons from the lodge that you're petitioning have to personally know you to some extent to feel comfortable to sign your petition and recommend you to the lodge. And then from there, the rest of the process happens. The lodge accepts that petition, assigns an investigative committee, and then those brothers meet with you and learn a little bit more about you, ask you questions, answer your questions, and then come back to the lodge and give a report on whether or not they found you favorable and recommend to the lodge whether or not to proceed with making you a Mason. That's what has to happen. They have to actually know you. Now, it is not too uncommon for somebody to say, hey, I'm visiting from out of town, just to give an example. My son, I'm a past master at my lodge in some other state, and my son, he's been living here in your jurisdiction for the last 2 or 3 years. He doesn't know if he knows any Masons, but I'd like to recommend him to you. He wants to fill out a petition. He asked me if he could become a Mason, and I told him to go to the local lodge, and he wasn't comfortable, so I brought him by, and I wonder if you guys would talk to him. So this kind of puts the lodge in a somewhat difficult position. We have the requirement of being told that the petition has to be signed by our personal knowledge of this man. And yet at the same time, we have somebody who, if we do our due diligence and verify his membership as a current Master Mason, then we have another Master Mason, a brother, telling us that he vouches for this man, whether it's his son or somebody he worked with before or whatever the relationship might have been. And as Master Masons, we take him for his word. And so now what? Now what do we do? Do we take this man at his word and say, hey, this man's worth investigating, and sign the petition just so we can do the investigation, or what do we do? So it puts you in this situation where you decide how literal you have to take things. Now, our past Grand Master, who has just stepped out of that position, made this a talking point of his. How that too often somebody would through some way, shape, or form be recommended to a lodge, and people would just sign the petition in the effort of getting them to the investigation process. Figuring that if there was anything wrong, that it would be found out in the investigation process. But he emphasized to the entire state how important it was to make sure that we were only signing petitions on people that we personally had knowledge of and following the words on the petition verbatim without any other delineation one way or the other. So that's the best answer I have for you. I don't know about the 1 year thing. That makes me want to see what other people from other jurisdictions are going to say down in the comments below. It may be that other jurisdictions have a particular timeline that is required for that. Sometimes what we've done in our lodge is we have dinner every single Monday night. And so somebody will come up and say, hey, I'm interested in filling out a petition. Okay, who do you know in the lodge? Well, I don't know anybody in the lodge. Well, hey, look, we're having dinner tonight. Why don't you stick around, have a meal with us, talk with us, and then come back next Monday and have another meal with us, talk with us, and when it's right, we'll get you that petition. And if the man really has an interest in it, he'll come and eat supper with us. He's a guest, so we don't ask him to pay. He gets to meet with us. We get to meet with him. And in a way, it's like an informal interview, but we're getting to know him. We're getting to have that personal knowledge of him. Hey, tell me your life story. Where do you come from? Who's your girlfriend? Who's your wife? How many children do you have? Have you been remarried? You learn all those little funny things about somebody, like you would if you had worked with them for the last 6 months or something like that. So that's one way for a lodge to kind of get to know them before officially signing a petition and putting that petition before the lodge and assigning an investigative committee. So perhaps other lodges can leave some information down below on how they try to do that, because it's a difficult sort of thing. If somebody wants to become a Freemason and they go about the due diligence of looking up a lodge online and finding out where their local lodge is, and here in Mississippi it's going to list to them when the regular communications are, and they happen to go to the lodge during a regular communication and they say, hey, I want to join, and nobody there has ever met this guy before, what are they supposed to do? You have a man who's interested, but nobody there has personal knowledge of him. So now you get creative and find a way to gain that personal knowledge of him. Invite him in for dinner, sit him down, find out why he's even curious about the fraternity, and start taking the baby steps that way. So just one possible solution, but I look forward to reading your comments down below on how it is handled in other jurisdictions. I would not be too surprised to find out that there somewhere is the very strict and unrelenting rule that if you can't iterate your personal knowledge of the person, that you cannot sign that petition, and all of my little tricks about bringing the person in for dinner a few times would not fly. So I'd be interested in learning about that as well. If you have any other questions or something that you'd like to learn more about related to this question, then please leave it down in the comments below, and thank all of you for taking the time to watch. We'll see you next time.